Your nightly news with Peter Murphy begins now.
Good evening, everyone. Tasmania is cracking down even further on border restrictions tonight. Our Spirit of Tasmania vessels now closed off to all but a select group of travellers. The Premier says he is already considering even tougher lockdowns, while doctors plead with communities to follow the rules to save lives.
A caravan crackdown on the Spirit of Tasmania ships. Border restrictions tightening, the crew turning all unnecessary travellers around.
If you are travelling to Tasmania and it's non-essential travel, do not come. Do not get on the TT line. What we will do is turn you around and ask you to go back.
Warning, self-isolation cannot be done in caravans or motorhomes. TT Line now contacting all those bookings from non-locals. And the Premier has not ruled out even further restrictions, even after landmark hospitality shutdowns came into effect yesterday.
Those measures are being contemplated. Moving to a hard lockdown is being contemplated.
One of his own, Sports Minister Jane Howlett, self-isolating after travelling to Townsville with a staff member.
Jane travelled with him and has been in close contact with him, and she is going into self-isolation today and will not be in the Parliament.
Overnight, confirmed cases in Tasmania rose to 28. Doctors releasing their own three-step plan to combat further spread, suggesting a complete community shutdown, enforced quarantine in medi-hotels and more widespread testing.
If we stop mixing, we stop the virus spreading. And so I think we've got to do all of those measures at once and do them early rather than drip them over the next month. We're saying to go hard and go early.
All 28 cases to date are directly linked to overseas travel or cruise ships or to people who have travelled overseas. There is no evidence of community transmission in Tasmania.
11 of those cases coming from cruise ships. Authorities now urging anyone who's been on a cruise to self-isolate.
It's important that all passengers on these cruise ships, until we're in contact with you, should enter self-isolation or quarantine for 14 days from when they left that cruise ship.
3 cases in Tasmania have now recovered from the disease and have been released from quarantine. Michelle Wisby, 7 Tasmania News.
Tasmanian pub owners say they've been dealt a baffling blow after being told they will still need to pay rent for idle poker machines. Licensees received an email from Federal Group yesterday informing them of the move. The company says it's meeting with the bank tonight to try to resolve the issue.
Day one after the shutdown was always going to be tough, but an email from Federal Group to pubs with pokies made it tougher.
They're saying that they're still charging rent because they've got commitments their ends with the bank, and they're trying to sort it out, and until they do so, we have to pay rent for this.
The Bridport Hotel has a handful of poker machines on licence from the company. Darren Martello pays thousands of dollars each week in rent he's been told to keep paying, even as the pokies sit idle.
Loosen things up, but hold the rent, freeze the rent on the machines. They said they're working toward it. We need that sooner than later.
Well, the Federal Group should urgently support those clubs by waiving any of those costs. It's an untenable situation now for those clubs and pubs.
Federal Group says it was forced to act fast following the government's shutdown orders. In a statement, it said it was urgently working with the bank to pause lease payments, which would immediately be passed on to venues, adding, "We know how tough tourism businesses are doing at the moment. We are one of them." Yesterday, Federal revealed it was standing down 1,500 of its own staff and closing a string of venues and casinos. For now, Darren is staying in business with the pub's bottle shop. Staying positive will be the real challenge.
I can't see much light at the end of the tunnel for us publicans.
Sean McComish, 7 Tasmania News.
Another Tasmanian school is shifting its students to online learning in the face of the outbreak. Our reporter Ruby Kamain joins us now for all the details on this developing story. The new arrangements.
School St Michael's Collegiate is suspending its normal classes. They'll instead be conducted through computers. Parents were sent a letter late this afternoon with an overview of the changes that will start to roll out from tomorrow. Students will be taught online and they can either stay at home or come to the campus for supervision. If they do attend, the school says it will maintain social distancing measures. Now, the school joins another major Tasmanian private school, Launceston Scotch Oakburn College, in moving to an online format to continue students' education. But Pete, as we've heard, there's no changes for our state's public schools at this stage.
Correct. Thanks very much for that, Ruby, keeping us updated there on those school closures, I guess. As the impact of restrictions begins to grip traders, there is a signal of hope for ratepayers tonight. There are calls for affected businesses to be given a financial reprieve, and some local councils are already supporting the moves.
On the first night of restrictions, entertainment hotspots were unusually quiet. Into today, the normally bustling streets were more muted. Shops and cafes either closed or running scaled-back operations to keep their businesses alive, leading to the Hobart City Council offering a solution to ease financial hardship.
Any ratepayer, whether it's business or residential, can come to us and make a very simple application that will be on our website to postpone their rates until after the 30th of June.
Last night's meeting resulting in a unanimous decision to allow a rates delay, defer penalties and interest, and waiver certain fees for businesses.
And we're trying to do our bit to ensure that we keep obviously all of our essential services, but ensure that people that are in financial hardship can come to us and ask for some support and relief from rates.
Rates relief must happen immediately. In fact, it should have happened yesterday. We can't close down the economy and then continue to tax people.
The Property Council urging all regions to take measures to provide rates relief.
There is no way that small business can pay for rates to councils at the moment. Their turnover has been severely restricted and we need that rates holiday to happen now. In fact, we need a rate suspension to happen now.
Councils don't have huge cash reserves and we have to ensure that the city can continue to function in providing essential services.
The lines at Centrelink long again today as workers feel the immediate effects of the business shutdowns. Ruby Kinane, 7 Tasmanian News.
A group of Tasmanian travellers says they've been stranded in South Africa, unable to get back home as the country prepares for lockdown over there. They're now pleading for help, worried they'll be left homeless on the streets of Cape Town if they can't get a seat on the last direct flight back to Australia.
A top tourist destination turning into a holiday hell. Tasmanians among more than 100 Australians from one cruise ship, worried they'll be trapped in South Africa indefinitely.
People are in tears, not knowing how and when we're going to get home, or if and when we're going to get home, for that matter.
Speaking from a Cape Town hotel, Tom and his wife Leanne spent the past 16 days at sea, unable to dock anywhere due to coronavirus restrictions. The Margate couple arriving into a very different set of circumstances to when they left.
At that stage, the world was quite normal, apart from some coronavirus in China and a couple of other spots. But over the next 10 days, while we were largely out of contact with the outside world, the world seems to have gone crazy.
They're now trying desperately to get back to Australia, but South Africa is about to go into lockdown. They now have until Thursday to get out, but all the flights are full.
If we're not successful, of course, when the restrictions and the lockdown occurs on the 26th, we're essentially out on the street.
Now planning to head to a larger airport in Johannesburg, hoping to squeeze onto one of just a few booked out flights to Australia. And they're not alone. Family members of other passengers anxiously waiting for news back home.
They feel deserted and they're really desperate to get some help from anybody. I just want my sister to come home safe and her husband. Yeah, that's about it.
The Department of Foreign Affairs and Trade was contacted for comment. Michelle Wisby, 7 Tasmania News.
As supermarket shelves become empty, Tasmanians are turning to more traditional methods to keep their supplies stocked. Garden centres are being inundated with people seeking to grow their own produce, but there is a warning from experts to pick the right crop.
This shelf left nearly bare, with a limited selection of vegetable seedlings to choose from after a swamped few weeks of business.
Very, very busy. A lot of people obviously on the uptake with the grow your own sort of market, that's for sure. No, it is difficult to keep up with demand. There's a lot of demand. We might be doing 4 times what we would expect to be doing in those sorts of products. So it is difficult.
Customers said to be flocking to Stoneman's Garden Centre to grow their own supplies for self-isolation.
So anything to do with the edible crop, particularly, and all the composts and the manures and the fertilisers that go with that, and also even just general gardening goods. I guess it's a good feel-good sort of area to be doing, and if you are stuck at home, you can get a few supplies and do some gardening.
With avid growers encouraged to plant the right produce for winter.
Be cauliflower, cabbages, broccoli, silver beets, spinaches, lettuce, things like that. All the seeds, peas and beans and carrots and things like that. So there's quite a lot to choose from for this time of the year, that's for sure.
Out of the garden and into the shop. A similar rush felt here at health food store Umara, seeing a rise in people purchasing staple ingredients.
It's been really busy. Sort of makes Christmas look a little bit slow. It's been very full on. Things which are more versatile, so you can make a lot of things with beans. So if you have a cupboard full of pulses and flours and pasta, then you're pretty well set.
With the need for wholesome, healthy supplies needed more than ever.
Yeah, I think it's probably a concern for a lot of people that if there's a risk of getting sick, you should eat healthier.
Ruby Kamain, 7 Tasmania News.
And now a look at the day's business and finance news with thanks to Bank of Us, Tasmania's customer-owned bank. The Australian stock market has closed over 4% higher today. The lifted performance came as analysts predict China will implement a jaw-dropping stimulus package to try to support the huge Chinese economy, and it could be as much as $7 trillion US. That's according to reports in the South China Morning Post today. The ASX 200 index rose 189.7 points, and a short time ago the Australian dollar was trading at 54.6 euro cents and 65 Japanese yen.
The NBL 1 season is over before it began for Tasmania's 3 clubs. The league had initially postponed the season until April 24, but today called it quits after federal restrictions tightened on indoor sports. The Hobart Chargers, Launceston Tornadoes and Northwest Thunder say they've become one team during this troubling time.
We're no longer the North, Northwest and the South. In this environment we're Tasmanian and we're working together as Tasmanian clubs for Tasmania.
Clubs are now helping their import players work out what to do next. Well, the postponement has thrown preparations for Tasmanian athletes out the window. Many are now preparing to train indoors once they return home and go straight into self-isolation. Of all Olympic preparations, our rowers have had the most disruption. First, the bushfires, which suddenly made Launceston the national training hub. Then, COVID-19 left Olympic qualification events in its wake. And last night, rowing's national training centres closed, meaning Tasmanian Georgia Nesbitt is heading home.
At the beginning of the season, our head coach, John Keogh, sat us all down and said the biggest thing is consistent training. Every year in an Olympic year, something will happen and it's just about training consistently, getting on with it.
But there's never been anything like this. For Nesbitt, postponing the Games is a mixed blessing. Her boat was yet to qualify for the lightweight double as crucial lead-up events were terminated. But being so close to showtime, the reality of waiting another year is still disheartening.
I was quite upset.
Nesbitt and Hobart hockey player Josh Belts agree health comes first and moving the Games is the right thing to do.
Knowing that it's not cancelled and just postponed, I think, provides good opportunity for all of us to become good citizens and listen to what the government are saying and hopefully write this out together. There's probably a bit of relief there as well, just knowing that we can now get the best prep possible.
While the Tasmanian Institute of Sport says athletes have the chance to regroup and relax before the Games are ready to go.
I've always had a strong belief that Tasmanian athletes, above all, are very resilient and they'll learn to cope, work through the things that they have to manage. And yes, some pretty big obstacles have come their way, but I'm sure they'll be overcome in the time.
And the AFL's newest fan has expressed his disappointment on the shutdown. With no other American sports on to watch, former NFL punter Pat McAfee fell in love with the game and now he's gutted.
We found it, and then a lot of people are like, there's no way these dudes should be jumping on top of each other. And postpone it for another month. It's probably my fault. I think I'm going to be an AFL fan for the long haul. But I want to see my guy, Coxzilla, Mason Cox, out there mossing folks.
Get around, Coxzilla. Glad you're in it for the long haul, Pat. Welcome aboard. Gee, Murph, the AFL's always tried to crack the big American market, and I reckon I might see Pat do a bit of commentary there. He might give BT a run for his money.
Well, it wouldn't be a bad idea to bring him over after all the exposure he's gotten over the last couple of days. And of course, he's so impressed because the counterparts over there playing football are padded up pretty well to the brink with helmets and pads and all the rest of it. You can hardly see the player underneath all that. And thanks for all that. Calamitous, all these horrible cancellations in sport, but as we've heard earlier today, it is a major threat to our society and we've got to play by the rules. We have Laura next with the weather.
Good evening. A fine and sunny day for most. 17 in Hobart today, 19 in Launceston. Burnie and Devonport both reaching a top of 18 degrees. 19 was the popular temperature today recorded at Cressy, Lowhead, Scottsdale, Smithton, Fingal, St Helens and also Bushy Park. Flinders Island, Grove and Ouse all 18 today. Lionweenie and King Island 15 while it was 14 at Strawn. On the satellite, low cloud over the west, far south and Bass Strait Islands, mostly sunny elsewhere. Further afield and low cloud over the Bight and the Tasman Sea today with low cloud also over coastal parts of the east and north. Elsewhere skies were mostly cloud free. Tomorrow high will lie over the Bight with another over the Tasman Sea. A cold front sits just to the southwest of Tasmania. Coastal waters and west to southwesterly winds at 10 to 20 knots up to 30 knots about the south. Swells below a metre in the north but building up to 4 metres in the south later on. And a strong wind warning is current from Wineglass Bay to Low Rocky Point. The forecast now, Hobart 19 with a possible late shower, Geeston 18 and a cloudy day for Bothwell 16. 21 and fine in Launceston, Devonport and Cressy both partly cloudy, looking a top of 20 degrees. A fine day for Burnie tomorrow 19, showers clearing for Strawn 17 and a shower for Curry 18. In the east, St Helens 19, Swansea 20 and a late shower for Orford 20 degrees there. The UV forecast moderate across the state. Looking ahead to Thursday now, fine until light showers develop about the northwest. Friday, light showers for the north, but fine elsewhere. And finally, Saturday, another fine day with some showers developing about the north in the evening. Brisbane tomorrow, fine and 27. Adelaide looking at a sunny day and 22. Melbourne cloudy and 18. A shower for Canberra, 23. Showers for Sydney. Darwin, showers also and a possible storm, 32 degrees. And it's 15 degrees right now in Hobart, a sunny 17 in Launceston, Devonport sunny and 15. Murph, that wraps up Tuesday's weather.
Thanks very much for that, Laura. Now, before we go tonight, we have some advice for people worrying whether they're suffering from a cold or flu or coronavirus. It can be hard to tell in the first few days of infection, but there are differences, as Seven's Melissa Doyle explains.
Well, at first you may think it is just a common cold, and it could be, but COVID-19 can escalate rapidly. Here is what it looks like if you have it. According to the World Health Organization, around 80% of coronavirus cases are considered mild to moderate. 14% are severe and 6% are critical. To be clear, even a mild case of COVID-19 is not like a cold. The symptoms will still be debilitating, but most won't need oxygen. For a severe case, you will need supplemental oxygen. Critical cases require life support. Now, in the first few days of showing symptoms, it can be hard to tell whether you have COVID-19 or just a cold or a flu. And that's because at first the viruses share many of the same symptoms. 88% of COVID-19 patients present with a fever and a dry cough. And if that sounds similar to a flu, that is because it is. However, with a flu, you will likely also experience muscle pain and a headache. And these symptoms are rarely seen in coronavirus patients. But the best way of determining whether you have COVID-19 is to think about where you have been recently. Have you been overseas or been in contact with someone who has? If you're concerned you have the virus, you can call the 24/7 coronavirus hotline or phone your GP. And as always, if it's an emergency, go straight to hospital.
Melissa Doyle there with that information. It all might seem like coronavirus overload, but of course a lot of this information is out there so we can save some Tasmanian lives. We're in the perfect position to do so if we can all follow instructions. That's all our news for now. I'll have updates for you later. Thanks for joining us. Good night.